I'm back with another video about my vibe-coded game Nebula Rush. This is a 3D Sci-Fi Racer which is based upon F-Zero X. That was the inspiration. That's a game that I played whenever I was a teenager, and you may have played it yourself. There is a number in the series of the F-Zero series, and they've been going since the early 90s, I believe, and even through into 2000s, maybe even the 2010s as well. Nothing has come out recently as far as I'm aware, but it has been going for a long time and it is pretty famous. So I played on the N64 and I thought it was great. I had such a good time. It's one of the ones which is, sort of stands out in my memory as one of the best racing games. So I'm just going to show you some of the latest things that I've done. Clicking through, selecting a pilot, selecting a ship. The ships have been updated. I'm going to go through this a bit later in the video. I just want to show you how the actual game plays. It's quite simple. It's got a bit of an arcade feel. You are racing around these 3D tracks. The ships are 3D. You don't have collisions on the ships. However, I think the game plays well. I think it's fun. I've been having a lot of fun playing it. It does have that sort of F-Zero feel to it. Or if you've played maybe something like Wipeout. I didn't really play Wipeout, but I think I played it once or twice, and it should have a similar look and feel. If you've played Star Wars Episode 1 Pod Racer, again, it was inspiration. I did play that game, I loved it, also great memories of it. It's somewhere in the back of my mind whenever I've been creating this, and about how I want the game to play. So I'm taking you through here, through the first track. It's quite simple. There's some hazards, some boost pads. It's got a sort of space sci-fi theme, and there's been quite a bit of work, as I said, since the previous version. It wasn't difficult work, it just takes time to add new features, to test them. If there's a few bugs along the way, as can happen, but nothing major, no major headaches in producing this. In a later video I'll tell you about a new track that I was building. I'm not going to do it in this video, but the new track had a whole bunch of headaches, which have all been sorted, but it was quite a challenge. And again, this has been working mainly with Claude. The first version of this was in December, and I'm going to go through that in just a moment. I just wanted to show you some of the gameplay before jumping into talking about some of the development work and what's changed. So that should give you a pretty good idea of the game. You got some of the music. The music was also AI generated, as was the code. Right, so now I want to tell you about some of the development work of Nebula Rush. Here I'm showing you a picture from the very first version, or this first series of versions. I started working on this game in the browser using Claude in the browser. You might see a tiny V75, and that's just me in the browser working with Claude, going back and forth, and it makes updates as I'm talking to it. This was obviously a very raw version. To me it's still version 1, given where it has come from and where it is later. For Claude it was version 75, again because just how it was making updates and going on, doing all the back and forth. So take a look at how it is. I've shown this in a previous video. It does look rough and a bit raw, not great, but this is how it started. Eventually, as I showed in a previous video, this was the latest state when I last worked on it a few months ago. You have a ship, you have ships that are 3D, you have a track that's 3D, a very simple background, very simple track, not really much detail to it. The ships are simple. The HUD, again, also quite simple, not super interesting, but everything is functional. So what has changed? Well, the ships that you saw are blocky, and I've smoothed those out, so they're smooth hulls, bullet noses rather than cones. The wings are curved. There's metallic reflection, as you will see, or you have seen in the video. And then something called greebles, which is something that the Star Wars people at the ILM, that they came up with in order to make their models look more interesting. They add tiny little details. It's almost like little random pieces that they add on in order to draw your eye to them. And partly it's to kind of give the illusion of scale whenever whenever they're using small models and they want the model to appear that it's very big, like a huge spaceship. And I think it works quite well. And there's a similar kind of trick here, not so much for the scale, but rather to add some sort of depth to the ships rather than just being like plain flat surfaces. The tracks, as I just showed you, flat and grey, and now we are going for sort of neon rails. That's like the ribbons downside of the track, and in the centre there's a centre stripe. We have a checkered flag now across the finish line, and we have boost pads are now arrows rather than pink as they were before, if you've ever played it. So this, I'm showing you, I've got something it says now that's obviously not quite correct. It's a newer version, it shouldn't say now. And this is the neon stripes down the side. It's the neon ribbon in the middle. The ships have been updated. You can see the rings around the engine. That's the greebles. You can see a sort of a black fin at the back of the bodies. That's one of the greebles. And then there's like these. If you look onto the right side, you can see a little stock kind of sticking up and down. And that, again, that's one of the greebles. It's just to kind of add a little bit more sort of detail to the ships to make it look a little bit more interesting, as opposed to just wholly flat surfaces. More can probably be done, but I think it looks quite good now, especially compared to where it has been. So everything has been evolving bit by bit, and perhaps in the future it will evolve again, but I'm happy at least with the progress. The previous image didn't show you the HUD. This is an updated version of the HUD. It's not the very latest, as I showed you in the video at the beginning. Things were again different still, but this is just showing you how things have evolved sort of step by step. Here I'm showing you the ground effect. So this was something that I added in. So the sky is still blue, so it's not got the space effect that you saw in the video, but you can see the ground effect. You can see the neon, you can see the ships, the metallic paint, the greebles, rounded hulls. You can even see the tank on the left side, how it has some little like rivets kind of things kind of on top. And I think it's just come together really quite nicely. Here is another picture, and you can see the space background, so that's all been generated in code. And you can see the updated HUD. At the bottom you can see the speed, the lap number and everything. This was some feedback that I got in Discord, that the speed being in the top left corner is difficult to see whenever you're driving, and so putting it into the bottom is a little bit easier for the players to see, especially if you've got a big screen. I'm mostly playing on my laptop because that's where I'm developing, and I don't really have a problem to glance to the top corner to look at the speed to then look back. But I can appreciate if you've got a large screen, you don't want to be scanning up and then scanning back in order to understand what's going on. So I thought that was good feedback. I added it in, and hopefully that's a good feature. I hope people like that setup. It's not going to be perfect, but I think that's fine. The link for this game will be in the description. It's something I have to add in, and I'm really keen for people to play and to give me more feedback. If you've looked at my channel before, you may have seen my previous video, and I would welcome you to go back and have a look at the first video. It shows you how it was in the early days, as I showed you me building it in Claude in the web. I'll give you a nudge to like, subscribe and to comment, but again, no pressure. Now let's talk about some of the challenges in developing this game. This page has a lot of text, and I appreciate that it looks quite boring, and I'm going to show you some pictures, but I just wanted to get this here. If you want to pause and you want to read this, please do. I'm not going to force you to read this now, and I don't think I'm going to read it all myself either. So there was a number of challenges, and these are small challenges. These are not major problems. It's just small little hiccups along the way. And so whenever you prompt Claude to give you something, it will give you something, but it may not be right the first time, but that's absolutely fine. You go back to Claude and then you ask it to fix it. And so far, I haven't had any major problems with Claude not understanding what I'm saying. In the early days of Claude, like with 3.5, 3.7, and before obviously, there would be issues where Claude just didn't understand what I was doing or what I was trying to say, or what do I want to fix, and it would kind of be a lot of like trial and error. But I've just not been finding it with the latest models. Like 4.5 was good, 4.6 again a little bit better, 4.7 people may complain on the internet, but we have seen a progression with the Claude models where they've been getting better. Same with the Codex models, or with GPT, whatever you want to call them. They are getting better, and they are getting more understanding, where you have less mistakes and less problems. You still get them, but you can also still fix them. Say, hey, this was a little bit of a mistake, let's fix it. And then you can. So the tracks, there was some smearing and stretching of the textures. I'm going to show you that. One of the wings, whenever I asked Claude to update the ships, I wanted the wings to be more rounded rather than to be straight. And one of the wings got flipped upside down. Again, very small thing that's easy to fix. Whenever I was downloading screenshots at the end, so there's a screenshot button, we press P, you take a screenshot, but there's a bit of an annoying workflow whenever you want to download them all at the end. Open Graph, this is again a small thing. It's not really a bug, it was just something that came up in development, which it's not something that I know deeply. So I've been trying to add more images to my website such that whenever you share the link, there's a picture that comes into the preview, and that's, as I understand it, you have to set that up, you have to get the correct tags, you have to have the picture in the right format. I've used PNG for that mostly, the last sort of 3 or 4 projects, but apparently it's better to be using JPEG. This is what Claude's been telling me recently, and I'm just assuming that it's correct. So let me show you a little bit of the challenges here. This was an idea before that we would have arrows going down the track, not just for boost pads, but the entire track. And this wasn't really quite what I asked for. I actually thought maybe the arrows would be down the side of the track and they'd be much, much smaller. But Claude didn't seem to think that that was possible with our current setup. Basically, each of the sections of the track are like tiles, and this arrow is filling the entire size of the tile. So while you could add more tiles to make them smaller, it would also hit performance, and I wasn't so keen to do that. So I decided, let's just take away these arrows, and we'll do something else. Not a huge, major problem, but it's just kind of working within the constraints of possible performance issues, and then something which looks nice. And what I've settled upon now is something which I think looks a bit nicer. So this is just, you know, the rendering of the track itself. There's no ground effect, there's no sky, there's no struts. You can see the neon ribbons down the side. You can see the stripes in the middle. You can even see the checkered finish line in the middle there. And I just think it just looks so much nicer now, as opposed to how it was in the past, where it was just a very flat, plain grey track in the earlier pictures in the old version of the game. I mentioned the mirrored wing bug. So Claude put on the wing upside down, so it did make a smooth edge, but essentially put it into the wrong way. So it's just kind of like a mirroring problem. Very easy to fix. It's, hey Claude, you put this around the wrong way, can you fix it? And it's like, oh yeah, made a mistake, and it fixes it. Again, you can also see the greebles pretty well, like such as the rings around the engine. I updated the cones for the engine, so the thrust is a slightly more complex shape now than what it was in the past, and I think it just makes it look that little bit more realistic. Yes, it is a sci-fi game, but you want to have this illusion that it's not just like a cartoon. You want to be a little bit more realistic, but at the same time not overly realistic. Kind of, I do want to kind of keep some of the arcade feel of what F-Zero X had. It's not going to be exactly the same. It's an inspiration, and I want to put my own twist on it, of course. So it's going to be similar, inspired by, but never exactly the same. The old blocky ships, which I've mentioned, I guess, a couple of times now, this is just showing you how it looked. You can even see the track, how it is simple grey, flat colour. The surfaces of the ships are flat colours. The thrust cones coming out the back, simple. The body of the ship is quite square, it's slightly rounded edges. And this looked nice whenever I first built it, and it was better than having nothing. But I wanted to make it, again, just a little bit more realistic. And I think that's what we have now. And as I've said, I guess, multiple times now, this is the new ships. Here's how they look. Most of them have got like a rounded hull. The tank I've left slightly square. I've left it with the sort of cone at the front for the nose, and that's because it's called tank, so I want it to be a little bit more square, so I want it to have that sort of feeling. I mentioned the download all screenshots being a bit of a pain. What would happen is that you press P to take a screenshot, it saves the buffer, and originally it would be that you get a pop-up actually, and you get this dialog box and ask you to save the file in the middle of the game, which is a real pain. That's not really great flow. It's not a great user experience. So what I did is like, okay, let's save all of the buffered images until the end, and then let the user download those in one go. So what would happen is I got to the end, I pressed download all, and it would download one image, so the first image, but then an alert box would pop up and it would say, hey, the browser wants you to download more files, do you want to do this? And at first I'm looking around thinking, okay, why don't I have any extra files? I only see one download. Well, maybe I did it wrong, maybe I pressed the wrong button or whatever, and I completely missed the alert box as a sort of small alert box at the top of my screen. And I just feel that was not a good user experience. So I had to come up with something else, and the something else is to download all the files as a zip. So when you press download all of the files get taken together and then they're saved as a zip file. You can save them individually, that is actually an option. So if you click on each individual image, you can download them individually if you only want one or two screenshots from the race. Otherwise, download all. And this gets rid of the alert pop-up, which I just didn't see, and it just feels like it's just a much smoother flow. That's everything that I really wanted to say. I wanted to show you how the game looked, how it feels whenever you're driving, let you get a chance to hear the music. I've got a link here at the bottom of the screen. I know you can't click it now, but it's going to be in the description of YouTube such that you can click it. I wanted to also tell you a bit about the development work, about how some things have changed and some of the small challenges that I've had, and actually again just to kind of encourage you to do something similar, you know, to take on these projects, to work with AI. It's much easier now than ever to write code and to create apps, to create games. There is still some challenges in the deployment, and that's maybe something that I can talk about in a later video. But now I kind of want to end this one. I want you to like, if you would, to subscribe, to comment, and if you could send me some GitHub stars, that would be greatly appreciated. Thanks, and I'll see you in the next video.